What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel coming to you with a live stream tonight. Got a special guest. You guys know him as Mr. Sandman. His name is DJ. He's here to talk a little bit about that play inside the trenches and to get into some of the specifics about kind of like how play calling comes around. He's going to tell us a little bit about his perspective on what he thinks about Sean Desai, some of the defensive concepts that are being run. But DJ, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and just let everybody know, let the audience know kind of your background and, you know, how you came into the cerebral football community.
Okay, yeah. I kind of just ran into your channel, just browsing through YouTube, and I was impressed by your football acumen, so I decided to continue to listen to, your stuff. And then when I heard that you decided to get on the live streams, I was excited as well because I thought, well, wow, I might have an opportunity to even speak to him personally on the live stream and delve even deeper into the aspects of football because both of us love the game and we're students of the game. Or I was a student. You might be more into it than I am at this present time. But I was a student of the game. I played the game in high school and in college for approximately 7 years. So I played high school football in Rancocas Valley, and it's a suburb right outside of Philadelphia. And I played college football at CCSU in Connecticut. That's Central Connecticut State University. When I played high school ball, I mainly played on the offensive line, and I played defensive line. And I was a little bit undersized for a defensive lineman and an offensive lineman, but I just so happened to be the strongest guy on the football team. And my coach, he loved my the way I played the line play, so they kept me there. So I was a 3-year varsity starter in high school. The very first year that I even played high school football, I broke the starting lineup. So it's kind of football was naturally in my blood. I grew up in Philadelphia prior to coming to Rancocas Valley area to play high school. So in Philly, we would just play tackle football in the streets, concrete. So just that rough and tumble style that was just normal for us. You know what I'm saying? So when I got out there, it was nothing to put my heart and passion into it, and it was kind of an interesting situation how I got to into college football. In college football, I played middle linebacker. I also played nose tackle, defensive tackle. So it was interesting how that all worked out. I was actually recruited to play a different position there, fullback, I believe it was. But then they decided to, I decided myself, as a matter of fact, that I wanted to play some defense because the majority of the time when I played high school ball, I played on the offensive side of the ball, and I wanted to get an opportunity to see what it felt like to hit people as opposed to getting hit all the time. So, yeah.
Get to be the proactive type this time, huh?
Right.
Instead of the reactionary. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick your mind, man, because this is one of the things that I love the most about doing this type of content, man. You run into people, and even someone like me, you learn so much from other folks. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've learned from my guy Dubs, the O-line guru, Jalen Williams. Both of those guys are former collegiate offensive linemen. Dubs was a center. Jalen played left guard. Jalen played at Virginia State. I believe Dubs played at Charleston Southern. And it's fun, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the community that play D3 ball and stuff like that too. And you learn stuff. Like even me, I still learn stuff to this day. I mean, you're always a student of the game. It's never a finalized product. Let's just go ahead and let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's talk about some of the concepts that are going on in Sean Desai's system. The first thing I want to start off with, and I want you to tell me if you're seeing the same thing. They're still a 50 front, but they don't play it as much as what Gannon did. Let me ask you a question, and this is something I said. I don't know how long you've been watching me, but I've been harping on this point for a while that, man, we really need to figure out a way of stopping the run with a 4-man front. And we've been pretty dang successful this year doing that. From a 5-man front perspective, go into some of the details as being a nose tackle. Like, what does that mean? Like, go over obviously you could be a 2-eye. You could be zero shaded. You could be a zero up front. I don't think a lot of people understand what it means to be like zero shaded and tilted. So why don't you start with that? Like, what does it mean to be a zero shade or a tilted nose?
Okay, so it's been a long time since I played. So the zero concept, I believe that's head over, right over the center.
Yeah, directly over. Yeah.
Directly over. So that's directly over. Typically, when you play nose tackle, the linebacker, because I played middle linebacker as well and I had to give those calls as well, they'll call the strong side of the offensive, which would normally be the tight end side. You know, that's the offense happens to not have a tight end, then you would call the strong side on whichever side had the fullback on it, or whichever side had the extra wide receiver flanker on that side. So that would be the strong side. And then
did it ever tick you off when they called Mike, when a quarterback calls Mike?
I'm sorry.
I don't think a lot of people understand I don't think people understand when a quarterback calls Mike, or if the center, sometimes it's the center that sets protection. Sometimes it's the quarterbacks. But if they call the Mike, you and I both know what they're doing. They're calling Mike. They're distinguishing which side is the strong side.
Right.
They're calling out the Mike so that way for the blocking scheme. Like, as a defender, when they called Mike, was there any ever time where if they confused it and you knew they confused it because they called the wrong Mike, did that cause something internally where you guys got like, oh, okay, like we got them because they don't know which side we're on. They're calling the wrong Mike out here. Or was there times where you're frustrated because they clearly are setting the protection to counter you? Like when you see them call Mike?
Well, the interesting thing about the 50 front or the 3-4, what you were talking about, is as a nose tackle, everybody on the line, all of the linemen that have their hands in the ground, they have two responsibilities. So it's always read and react, particularly when you're dealing with the front. So if I was shaded to the strong side of the center's shoulder, then I would have that A gap on strong side, and I would also have the responsibility of the weak side A gap, and that would be a read and react type of situation. So if so basically, as a nose tackle, I would have to hold up the center, and normally I would have to take on a double team block if it was a running play.
Keep them from climbing.
If they were going to run strong side, that offensive guard, say if the strong side happened to be on my left side, that strong side guard or the right guard, he'll double team block down on me, and then they would do a combo block to the second level, which would be the Mike linebacker, so they can run some type of play up into the A gaps. So my responsibility as a nose tackle would be to fight that double team, or if it happened to go weak side, if the play happened to go weak side, which is unusual, particularly on the college level and the high school level. Maybe they probably do it more so in the NFL. But a lot of times, if the running play happened to go weak side, it was kind of off schedule, meaning the running back see anything open in the A gap and the B gap and the C gap, so forth, and he cut it back into the weak side A, B, C, so on and so forth. That's the concept of the 50 front, where all of the D linemen have two gap responsibilities. So if I happen to be that defensive end in the 3-4 front, and my gap responsibility was the C gap, I was outside shoulder of, or I was head up on the nose on the offensive tackle, or inside show or inside shade of the offensive tackle, then my responsibility would be that that B gap, that B gap weak side, or I have to fight to get to outside, cover that C gap, or if the play strong side, and vice versa with the two middle linebackers as well. They also have responsibilities as well. So if the play happened to go strong side, then if as a nose tackle, if my responsibility is the A gap, the two A's, then that middle linebacker, the Mike linebacker, his responsibility would be the B gap if it goes strong side, and if it go strong side, and if it goes weak side, then his responsibility would be with a weak side B gap, so on and so forth. So we all had double responsibilities: the 3 down linemen, the nose tackle, and the 2 defensive ends, and the 2 middle linebackers, the Mike and the weak, the Will Mike linebackers in the middle. We all had 2 gap responsibilities, and that was the difference between playing the 34 front or the 50 front, like you like to call it, or playing the 4-3 front. I played 4-3 defense for a very short period of time in high school, and I actually played a little middle linebacker in the 43. And the 43 front is more difficult to run defense for the middle linebacker. As the middle linebacker, you have to be like Superman, basically. So you don't have any particular gap. You just, whatever comes, you got to eat it up. You know, because all of the linemen, the linemen in front of you, if the 2 D tackles have the B gap responsibility, that's their responsibility. If the 2 defensive ends have the C gap, or they're playing a 9 technique or whatever, then that's their 1 gap responsibility to keep contained. Everything in between, if the running back goes, strong side, weak side, middle, anywhere, that middle linebacker, he's got to eat it up. And your 2 outside linebackers, your strong and your weak side. Normally, the weak side backer, he would be more focused on covering the flats, but he also played a lot of run defense as well. So that's the biggest difference in between playing the 34 to 50 front and playing the 4-3 defenses.
Gap integrity. Yeah. The difference in the gap integrity between gap and a half, and 2 gaps.
Right.
Yeah. And I think single gap and when you're explaining 2 gap, I think are easier. Gap and a half is a little hard to explain because it's about playing the hips of the lineman and shooting the gaps correctly and controlling the gaps where you have for the integrity. But yeah, I mean, definitely when you look at Sean Desai's defense, what are some of the key takeaways you have? Like, you look at Sean Desai, we've seen him now for 7 weeks now. All right. Yeah. It's been 7 weeks. We've got a chance to see his defense. What stands out to you about Sean Desai in the system?
Mainly what stands out about Sean Desai and his particular system is his creativity, particularly on a 3rd and long or 2nd and long. I've seen him on several different occasions bring his defensive ends or your edge rushers and bring them in and have them rush over the middle, not the guards, have them rush over the guards, and then he'll take his D tackles like a Fletcher Cox or maybe even the Milton kid and have them play outside contain and get that rush up the middle. I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, I've seen him do a few times where he would take 2 D tackles, put them on one side of the line on the pass rushing down, and then put 2 pass rushers on the other side of the line. And when normally in your normal base defense, you would have your 2 D tackles in the middle and your 2 edge rushers on the outside. He would move his edge rushers all over the place. So
yeah. Nolan Smith is he's one guy I've been watching. Like, I mean, they got that man up in the B gaps. They got him up in the A gap at times. They rush him, outside as like a stand up, almost like a joker or an overhang. Like, I mean, they definitely been doing some things with the defensive ends. I mean, he strikes me as a guy who seems to be gaining confidence in terms of like the trust he has in the players. Man, I would love to see him find a way of getting Sweat, Reddick, and getting Nolan Smith on the field at the same time and trying to watch offensive lines match up to that type of athleticism. That's a different level of athleticism. And I know a lot of people are like, nah, but you're kind of light if you do that. But it's like, yeah, but not if you got guys like Fletch, Jordan Davis, and freaking, in the young phenom out there pass rushing. I mean, like, those dudes they're good players. They're strong. They can control the middle. Then it gives you the flexibility to do these things with these tweeners. They're tweener linebacker and edge players. It's crazy because even Josh Sweat, who's probably the most physically put together of our edge rushers, probably a
Right.
little bit closer to what we would consider to be a prototype. He still really started out in college as a linebacker and then kind
Right.
of worked his way in. You know what I mean? Like, I think people forget that he was a 250-pound guy himself coming out of college. And I mean, he's nasty, man. Josh Sweat is nasty. Son Riddick's nasty. Nolan Smith. I mean, there's some athleticism there with that guy as well. Brandon Graham, man, you were speaking about undersized noses. Talk about that. Brandon Graham lined up over the nose.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anytime that you have an opportunity to pass rush against a center, that is, and you're a good pass rusher with a little bit strength on you, I think that's an advantage for a good pass rusher, mainly because the center, his responsibility is he has to make all of the calls, he has to hike the ball, and in football, particularly when you're dealing in the trenches or even the second level at the linebackers, it's all about the first step. It's all about the
Yeah.
first. The D lineman is all about the first step for the offensive lineman. So if your first step is just a split second too slow, or just a hair in the wrong direction, you're probably going to lose that battle if you're going up against a defender or an athlete that's just as good as you, skill wise and athletic wise. So, being that the center has to hike the ball, he has to make the calls, and that split second that he takes to hike the ball, and you're right over him, and you have a one-on-one pass rush against him, 9 times out of 10, that's an advantage for the pass rusher. So what offensive linemen tend to do is, if it's like 4 rushers, right? One of the guards will help the center in that pass rush responsibility because they know that he's at a disadvantage. But if you have your 2 edge rushers, like a Josh Sweat or a Hassan Reddick, outside shade of those offensive guards, they can't help the center block on the
Yeah.
pass. So if you have a good pass rusher and you put him head up over the center on a long distance passing down, then 9 times out of 10, unless that center is Jason Kelsey or one of the other great centers in the NFL, you're probably going to beat him one-on-one, in the pass.
Yeah.
And
That's got to be tough too for offensive lines because like you're dealing a game, the whole game you're dealing with like Jordan Davis, who's, I mean, he's a phenom himself in terms of the athletic profile, but I mean, he's still 6'6", 345, 350-ish if we're being friendly about the weight. I don't know what his real weight is, but I mean, they list him at like 335-ish, I want to say. I have no clue what his actual weight is, but I mean, that's a big man. That's a very big man, 6'6" for a nose. That was the first, fear I had when we drafted him is like, it's a good thing he's so massive because it's hard not to be upright at that height. I mean, 6'6" is tall for a nose. That's really tall.
right. So as a guy who used to play offensive line, and a guy that also used to play D line, offensive linemen hold every play.
Yeah.
And straight up. I can't an offensive lineman can't block a D lineman on a pass rush play if he's backing up in his pass rush set without holding him. It's absolutely impossible unless the guy is a scrub and he can't, do it.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a long D tackle like a Jordan Davis with long arms, 6'6", the body of like, a power forward in basketball, if I can't grab him to hold him to me because his arms is too long, all I can do is try to move my feet and stay in front of him.
Yeah.
But I can't control him. You see what I'm saying? So what I would want to do is I would want to get off the ball so much faster than him before he can extend his arms, and I want to grab his shoulder pads, and wherever he go, I go. And and you got to drag me with you. And you might be, 365 pounds, but as an offensive lineman, like a Jason Kelsey, whatever, like Most of these guys, they're big guys too. I'm 6'3", 6'4", 315 pounds. You got to drag me wherever you go. It's going to slow you down, you know. And if my quarterback only needs 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds to read the defense and get the ball out, me holding on to you for them 2.5, 3 seconds is enough for, you know, the play to end and it to be over, and then we'll go to the next down to see if you can do it again.
That's
So
got to be that's got to be such a challenge because I mean, it's like Sean Desai, like he plays these games to where like it's like he's almost shifting gears and he's trying to get this feeling. He's trying to dictate things to the offense to where, you know, he'll go with those power looks where he's got Fletch, he's got Jordan Davis, and he's got Jalen Carter. That is a heck of a power group on your interior. Josh Sweat, really good run defender on the outside. Hassan Reddick, well, he showed what he can do. He might be a little undersized, but the dude is really, really talented, and he's savvy. He's savvy about staying in where he's supposed to be and playing the run correctly. That's a tough group. And then all of a sudden, they hit you with this changeup. And they got freaking Brandon Graham on the nose. They got Jalen Carter out in a 5-tech or a 4-eye. And then they got, you know, Fletch will be out there, or Milton Williams will be out there on the other side as a 5 or a 4-eye. Guys, 5 or 4-eye just depends on the shoulder they're playing on the tackle. 4-eye means they're on the inside shoulder of the tackle. But, like, it's crazy how they can just switch up and how he can play with these gears on the defensive line. And he is creative as crap with that stuff, man. I mean, he's got dudes standing up like Nolan Smith over the A's and B gaps. He loves bringing those linebackers up. Zach Cunningham, Morrow, Dean. He loves to give that mug look. And then most of the time he doesn't really bring it from the mug look. It's really they're going to fall back out. But every now and then you see him dictate the pace and bring the linebackers on a blitz. Like he's creative, man. He's really freaking creative.
yes, he is very creative, and all of that that pre-snap looks that, you know, he gives the offensive line kind of like infuses the center and with protections that he wants to call pre-snap. So, you know, if they want to call like a slide left protection and they see a overload on the left side of the offensive line where they got like maybe 3, maybe even 4 potential pass rushers on the left side and maybe only 1 on the right side. It's just a numbers game. So I can't get enough blockers on that end.
Yeah.
So I call it a slide protection, then maybe have my one of my running backs, if they're in the backfield, stay in to help block on that side. But then those 4 potential pass rushers, of those 4, 2 drop back into coverage, and then the 2 off-ball linebackers that were on the other side, they come. So as an offensive line, now I'm scrambling. I called my protection for the left side, but the pressure is coming on the right side. So that it causes all kind of confusion. And then when you got a new guy out there, he's not new. The offensive lineman who's in there for Juergens.
Sua
Opeta, and you know the most defensive coordinators, they might be identify him as maybe a weakness a little bit, and they say, okay, how can we get him isolated on a good pass rusher? Like I'm saying, like, all right, so when we play the Dallas Cowboys, okay, but they're going to be thinking is, how can I get Mekan Parsons? That's how you say his name? Parsons? Mekan Parsons?
Micah
Parsons.
Dallas. Yeah. Penn State product. Yeah,
the Penn State guy. How can I get him one-on-one with Sua Opeta, where Sua Opeta can't get any help from the center? He can't get any help from Lane Johnson, who's going to jab his inside shoulder, his inside gap before he takes up again. How can I get Mekan Parsons one-on-one on him? Because I see that as a disadvantage, or I see that as an advantage for the defense. So
do you see any of our guys capable of doing it? Not Micah Parsons. That's not fair to try to put these guys in that category. But do you see anyone with those type of traits on this Eagles team? Like, do you think, because Nakobe Dean was known as a big time specialist as a pass rusher at Georgia. I mean, you know, Nolan Smith, and they'll do a tremendous amount of athleticism. Like, Do you see those type of components on the Eagles defense to where Desai is like kind of doing what you're trying to talk about, which is you're trying to isolate an offensive lineman and work that lineman by doing those things? Do you see a guy like on a roster that you think in that stand up, or they're coming up and they're kind of giving it's not always Mug, because Mug, you're normally with Mug, you got a 6-man line and there's normally going to be 2 guys in an A gap there. So it's not always a Mug look, but it's a similar concept to it, to where they're bringing those guys and they're standing them up. Is there a player in particular you notice? I never really gave it that much thought, but is there a guy that stands out to you that the Eagles do that, where they're trying to isolate with deciding where he's trying to isolate a guy on someone?
I mean, the only person I've seen them try to isolate with is probably Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
Because I
can see that, to keep lines from sliding towards him. So yeah. where you were talking about where Micah, they're just literally trying to get Michael in the favorable matchup. Right. For what you're saying for Desai, it's more so, no, we're going to make sure you can't commit to a slide.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. You can't slide your line for protection towards Jalen Carter.
Sure,
yeah, that makes sense, man. That's a good, yeah. Yeah, I could see that, man. Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense.
I mean, I know Nakobe Dean was a pretty good pass rusher in college, but to compare him to Micah Parsons, particularly,
yeah.
I mean, he has great speed, but he just doesn't have the frame of a Micah Parsons. He doesn't have the long arms, the broad shoulders.
Yeah, he's a good athlete. Yeah, Nakobe's a decent athlete, but he doesn't have that same type of twitch. There's a different level of twitch there between those two guys. Like Micah he's really explosive off the snap. It's like the only people you see do that are like the Hassan Reddicks. Josh Sweat's another dude that, man, off the snap, he's a monster. But Danielle Hunter with the Vikings is like that. What's his name? Old guy, Von Miller. Von Miller, he's got that type of twitch.
Right. Yeah, Von Miller, monster.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to think. What do you think about the secondary, man? I know you're like, I'm not a secondary. I don't play defensive back gate. But what do you think about the secondary? Like adding Bayard, having Blank. We got the veteran guys on the outside now. Hopefully that's where they're going to remain for the remainder of the season. And, Bradbury and Slay, probably a little uncertain in the slot corner position. But, I mean, look, Eli Ricks, I don't think he's a natural slot. I think if you put him there too long, you're playing with fire a little bit. But, I mean, that dude did the job last week, man. 3 targets on, guarding Tyreek Hill and gave up nothing. Like, that young man's got some moxie, man. What are your thoughts about that secondary and adding Bayard? What you think about Eli Ricks?
Well, I mean, just like the front 7, where I said the first step is the most important part of the play. So having that right step forward in the right direction at the right, explosiveness and the right speed. It's a similar issue with the D-backs where their first step is backwards. So their first step is always going to be to protect the passing game. So their first step is always going to be into a back pedal. So if you get like a inexperienced safety particular, and part of his responsibility maybe is to cover the deep half of the field, but he's looking in the backfield a little bit too long, and he thinks he sees a run play, and he takes his one step forward, then takes 2, 3, 4 steps back. Forward to defend the run. Now you got these super great athletes in the NFL where a flanker can get 30, 40 yards down the field in the blink of an eye, and those 2, 3 steps that you took forward because you read the play wrong, that flanker, that wide receiver could be wide open. That's what we seen with Tyreek Hill this past week. Against the Dolphins when he beat that double coverage. So Edmonds, his feet got stuck in mud, and he was waiting.
He was in that quicksand.
But I don't know why he was waiting for it, but that split second where he stopped his feet, Tyreek was gone.
And someone asked me that question too, like what was happening with Edmonds on that play, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if maybe, because the thing is like, from a coaching standpoint, I would not expect my boundary corner in that situation to be playing a mirror technique. I would have thought that he would have been more in a jam in terms of the press, not mirroring in press, but jamming in press to disrupt the timing and the rhythm of the route. And then you have the safety top over the help from Edmonds because, you want Edmonds to stay towards one side of the shoulder. You want Bradbury on the other side of the shoulder. And then you got once you get to where you're even, one guy's going to stay up, one guy's going to stay back on them. It's a basic bracket. I don't know why they mirrored there. I don't know if Bradbury messed up the call, if that's something with the size system. I don't know. I'm not in the room. I don't want to throw blame on something that I'm not in the room to really figure out. But that was the first part that messed me up. But then it was like looking at the depth. Like there wasn't maybe I'm misremembering the play, but I don't remember there being another receiver to that side. So I don't understand why Edmonds was up like he was. I don't know why Edmonds wasn't back further. I didn't get that one either. I didn't get his distancing. Now, normally we're all complaining about these guys being in South Jersey when they line up, in the secondary. But I mean, on that particular play, I'm like, dude, that's Tyreek Hill. What are you doing? Like, what are we thinking here? Yeah, I mean, he blew right by both of them. That was bad. That was terrible freaking play.
Well, see, if you put a new wide receiver, not wide receiver, a safety, like a Kevin Byard in that same situation, he's not going to make that mistake. I don't think. Tyreek Hill is like crazy fast, but I believe that a safety like Kevin Byard has seen so many different offenses, seen so many different athletes in the NFL that he would make that right decision. He wouldn't take the bait on that dig route. He would his fundamental.
He cut out on him. Sorry, guys. I'll make a couple of comments while I'll try to get him back for a second here, guys. But my guy Carlos said, "Hey Gates, who do you see or like Howie trading for after acquiring Byard? From what I've read / listened to, he might go linebacker or cornerback." Boy, Dallas Cowboy fans aren't going to like this. I wouldn't trade per se, but running back position. I don't know what they're doing there. We could just say like, yeah, we might just be wasting time on the running back position. They don't, they got the rotation, not going to do anything. But Malik Davis played at Florida, was coached by Brian Johnson. Malik Davis had a few years at Florida where he was a really good contact bounce back. He's not a huge guy, but he ran pretty tough between the tackles. He's a role player. He's a guy like, if you go get a dude like King Henry and you're talking about splitting reps with Swift, I don't know that's going to I don't know King Henry is going to be for that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that makes the most sense to me in my opinion, but it is what it is there, guys. I would look for something like you can sign him off of the Cowboys practice squad. He's got experience there. I would look for a move like that, Carlos, in terms of the roles and stuff. What's up, man? He's back, guys.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I got a phone call. Sorry about that.
That's all good. Mm-hmm. I was answering a question while you were gone. I had you. But yeah, you were saying basically that you don't think Byard would make that same exact mistake that Edmonds makes in the secondary. Yeah, I think so too, man. Like that's definitely that definitely could be true. Like, you know what I mean? Like I could see like having a veteran guy there that's not going to go the same way. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be smarter about being there. But Edmonds isn't young either. It's just the crazy thing is Edmonds' numbers would lead you to believe he's a really good athlete, but man, something about his footwork and coverage, it's just wrong. It's just all wrong. I don't even know how to explain it. His footwork is just wrong. Normally, like there's some telltale signs on the testing. I always I don't get as pumped about the combine as other people. I like to watch it just like everybody else does. It's entertaining, but I also know those numbers you got to be a little careful with, buyer beware. With that said, I do look at some of the lateral drills. When I see the shuttle times can normally tell me if someone's got bad footwork. So if I'm seeing like a short shuttle, the 20-yard shuttle, that short shuttle, and I see the numbers don't make sense to me, like, okay, he's probably got some footwork issues, to be honest. The 3-cone is a really tricky one because we tend to overvalue, I think, the actual physical number when actually the point of the drill is to really watch the hips. So it's not even so much about the numbers is, okay, how are those hips rounding? You know what I mean? Like I've seen some people really get into the nuances of how you judge that drill and what they're actually looking for. And the fact that, you can look at a DK Metcalf and say the dude had the same exact 3-cone drill as Tom Brady, but those hips don't lie. They're different players. Those are completely different players. You know what I mean? Right. It's, things like that. I mean, I get a little off about that, but I looked at the numbers and I was looking, I was like, oh, he's a big physical presence there. He's going to be a role player. I hated it for him because I already was really well liked in the locker room. And that can't be easy to go from a team like the Eagles, who are competing for a Super Bowl, to Tennessee, which is, they're thinking about the future. I mean, that's, I'd imagine that's not an easy move for a guy in that position, but I can't sit here and hide my excitement that Bayard is a player. That dude is a player, man. He is coming in. Like that's going to make the outside corner play, I think, a lot better. I think just trusting and knowing that you got Reed in the right spot and you got Bayard in the right spot, I think all of a sudden you're going to start seeing Slay's play pick up, and you're going to see, Bradbury. I think both of those guys, all of a sudden, I think their play is going to go through the roof, and everyone's going to be like, oh, look, everybody overreacted. It was too soon. It's like, nah, I mean, I think adding veteran guys into the mix is kind of like letting them play freely. We noticed that in the game with the Rams. As soon as they started plugging in the veteran guy and Roby, those dudes started playing better. It didn't look anything like that Washington game. That Washington game, I was legitimate concern coming out of that. I was like, boy, we can't communicate and we can't pass off coverage. We got a problem.
Yeah.
And then they plug in one veteran. They had, when Brown went down, when Sidney Brown went down, I was like, oh boy, like Brown wasn't a veteran, and Brown definitely still makes mistakes out there, but Brown's athletic as crap, and like he was serviceable. Man, when they had to play Goodrich and those guys like that, and oh man, I was concerned. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I was definitely concerned. Let's talk a little bit about the red zone offense, man. Let's transition. Let's talk a little bit of offensive football. In the high red zone, so between the 20 and 11-yard line, what do you see from this offense, man? What is happening?
Well, I think they don't have a fullback, and they don't have a very big downhill runner. Oh, and another thing is they don't play much with the quarterback under center. So when you play out of the shotgun and you try to run the ball out of the shotgun, basically the running back doesn't have those few steps to get a running start and hit that hole with explosiveness and speed. He's kind of like taking the ball from a standing position and then he's going. And particularly when you're dealing with the NFL, and especially when you get in the red zone, those holes open and they close. Quick. So if you don't have an offense where you don't have a fullback and you don't play from under the center, it's tough to really run the ball if your running back can't get downhill when the quarterback takes the hike, turns around and hands it off. So that kind of like takes one dynamic of your offense out of contention when it comes to your red zone offense. So what you have to do is, if you don't really have that running element in your red zone offense, then you have to be more creative with Andy Reid in Kansas City. He doesn't have a fullback either, I don't believe, but he'll do like some jet sweeps that'll infuse the defense a little bit. Or if you have like a running quarterback like we have in the Jalen Hurts, you can consider him that extra running back in the backfield. So it's the element of him being able to pass or run that will make the defense hesitate a little bit when it comes to defending in the red zone. So I believe that particularly this year, the new offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, they haven't found that rhythm. They haven't found that nuance of dealing with red zone offense just quite yet. I don't think they've figured out when to do the quarterback sneak or when to do the quarterback design run, as opposed to when should I do a slant route or when should I do a back shoulder fade. I don't have that rhythm. It seems like they don't really know what they want to do, what they want their identity to be when you get into the red zone, because I believe that, because like I said, the window's open and close at such a fast rate in the red zone, not just
Mhm.
in in your gaps when you're running the ball, but the windows open and close quickly in the secondary as well, because there's
Yeah.
not much room for them to cover. So because they don't have that identity, they're not like moving fast enough and executing fast enough for them to really be efficient in the red zone. So until they find their identity, their so-called bread and butter plays, then that they execute perfectly, where everybody does their assignment perfectly, everybody, all 11 men block, who they're supposed to block,
Uh-huh.
or in the spots that they want to be, that they're supposed to be, at the time that they're supposed to be there. Until they find their bread and butter, they're going to continue to have these issues in the red zone. So
Yeah.
you got to find your bread and butter, something that your offense executes highly efficiently to get 15 to 20 yards to get yourself in the end zone.
So there are a couple of things I want to cover here. I'm going to table one of them because I love your point about going under center. And I want to talk about going under center compared to how we manipulated and used the RPOs last year in the red zone. The fact that those have really, for a large majority of plays, kind of been detracted. But I want to get into something that leads into this discussion. And it was something you and I have talked about for a couple of weeks now, which is we got to go back, man. You got to go back to the very beginning. We installed an offense. So when we talk about install, guys, we're talking about the physical nuts and bolts of an offense. It's what these guys learn during OTAs and stuff. And then you finally have the final install. Normally comes in the NFL. It's normally sometime around like the middle of camp, right around August, right before they start the preseason games. You get the install, the final install, basically. From the install, that's when you can come up with your individualized, like, you come up with your playbook from the install. Then from your playbook, you get your individualized, your game plans and stuff like that. So I want to talk to you. Normally on Saturdays, they will run situational drills. That's it's normally what would happen. Day before a game, you're going to run through your situational stuff. What do you think's going on in these meetings with the red zone? Like, what do you think those discussions are? I mean, we don't know. We're not in them, but what do you think those discussions are like? Like, what do you think's being discussed? Like, where do you think that that in your opinion, we might start seeing a little bit of changes? You already kind of mentioned one, which is we haven't really been playing the quarterback under center in the red zone. And that has an advantage for the running back. Number one, just a timing thing to see the holes develop, timing thing to see things kind of progress. Also, as you pointed out, it's a matter of motion. Two objects in motion, defensive line and that running back, they're both going to be in motion. You're giving them a fighting chance to get through the hole for short yardage situations. That kind of led into my point about detracting the RPOs, but just going back, like, what do you think's going on in those Saturday meetings, man? What do you think is going to be the curveballs that they start throwing? Because to be fair to Brian Johnson, I think he was 4 of 6 last weekend. He was really 5 of 6 or 4 or 5 because one of those was just basically a kneel down situation in the game, although it still gets credited that way at 4 or 6, unfortunately. And then I think he was 2 of 3 the week prior, but it was in a loss. So hard to count that one, bro, when you're losing. But I mean, over the last 2 weeks, like, we've been pretty dang successful in the red zone. What are your thoughts? What do you think's happening, man? What do you think they're discussing?
Well, like I said, it's all about in the red zone. It's all about execution and finding your identity. So when you have the philosophy of your offense, or even the philosophy of the defense installed, anything or any plays that you add onto your offense have to coincide with the philosophy of the offense. So you can't go completely away from what your foundation is. It has to, like, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Like, you can't add a piece unless a piece fits. You see what I'm saying? Because if
Uh-huh.
that doesn't fit, like, say for instance, the playing under center, if y'all haven't been practicing running that play, and your quarterback, and the time in between your quarterback and this 3-step drop and turning around and handing the ball off, and now you're getting turnovers because you're fumbling because you haven't been practicing under the center all year long. You're not going to, if you have a game to win, you're not going to add that at the last minute on a Saturday right before the game.
Game, yeah.
Not enough time to get that timing down between your quarterback and your running back on the handoff situation. In practice, they practice the handoff 1,000 times, thousands and thousands of repetitions, so that it becomes like second nature. You don't even have to think about it because
So
everything.
just let's to give some insight here, to give people a little insight of what you're saying. The reason you wouldn't do that on a Saturday and then make that change for Sunday's game is you'll screw the timing up of the play. Like, there is a timing aspect to that play design. And if you're all screwed up on the timing, it's dead. It's dead in the water. You're in a lot of trouble there. So you wouldn't do it off the cuff like that. I would know your thoughts about this, though. I think the bye week. I think when we get past Dallas, meet that bye week, I would not be shocked, man, if they do not put that red zone offense underneath the microscope. Because, the first week the players are gone, but the coaches will be there. I got a feeling they're going to put it. I think they give the coaches a couple of days off, to be fair, guys. Don't quote me. I'm not Nick. Nick decides this stuff. But normally they give the coaches a couple of days, but then the coaches come back for the players and you start working on this stuff. I think they're going to put it underneath the microscope. What are your thoughts, man? Am I crazy for thinking that, or what are your thoughts?
I think that's when analytics come in. You have X amount of plays that you ran through the first 8-9 games of the season, and you seen, of that 100 plays that you ran in the red zone, you seen 60% of them that were unsuccessful, and you seen 40% of them that were successful. Okay, why were those 60% unsuccessful? Was it against this defense, against this look? Okay, and why were these 40 plays successful? Was it against this defense, against this look, against this personnel? Then it's just a process of elimination. You say, okay, let me cut this out with this look because it's not working. Take that out. But this is working, but it could work with this and this because there was some success. Even though that play was unsuccessful, there was dynamics of the play that were successful. So you might want to merge the two. So it's going to be a process of the coaching staff just hacking the numbers, looking at everything that they did, everything that they called, all the execution from the players of the play calling, why it happened, who they were going up against, to find a group of plays that you feel will be successful to you going into the final stretch run of the season. So I assume that they'll be doing over the bye week. It's going to be like just a lot of film study, just a lot of critiquing of their performances, what they call it, and just a process of elimination. What works, what doesn't work.
And the other thing that gets to me is like I was watching some people talk, and they were talking about the first possession in the red zone last week, and I knew what happened. I saw it. To be fair, what happened was on that third down play, Jalen saw man coverage and saw the way that they were tilting their line, and they opened the middle of the field up. The problem is David Long is an incredible athlete, and he closed the gap quicker than Jalen thought he could and closed that play off. Jalen checked that. He checked that into that quarterback draw. To be fair, we're taught that as quarterbacks. You're supposed to. When you see that, you're supposed to check it. But I thought the real problem is that they're playing man coverage because they have this tightened space, and it's third down. So they're just trying to hold long enough. And then my thing is that they're blaming the play caller, but I got to push back on Nick a little bit. It's Nick's offense. Why are we not designing rub routes? Why are we not designing anything to get a free freaking release? Why are we not putting dudes in motion in that? I'm not talking about, look, I don't give a crap if you're the 32nd overall. That, to me, it doesn't matter. It's situational. That's a situational, point in a game to where you should have a free release created. You should have motion built in. You should have something to try to get your guy free. Get that dude free. Don't just try to line up and say, my guys are better than your guys. In that situation, design it. Design that. Get them free. Like, what do you think it is about that, man? Because we really don't run a lot of designed offense in terms of every offense is designed, but in terms of like trying to design a guy open, like in terms of like creating the free releases, the coach design stuff. Our stuff is more so about matching up. We want to spread the defense out. We want Jalen to clearly see the coverage, and we want Jalen to identify the matchup and attack it. That's kind of what they want to do offensively. But like, there's just like nothing there from a motion perspective. There's nothing there from a free release perspective that really seems to put the ball in the hands of a playmaker in that situation and then try to get them into the end zone. I don't know why they don't do it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, like I was saying before, it's all about the foundation of your offense. So, like you said, Brian Johnson is the play caller, but it's still Nick Sirianni's foundation. So anything that Brian Johnson adds to the offense has to follow within the foundation of Nick Sirianni's offense. So if Nick Sirianni says that, okay, when I have two wideouts in this situation, I want my outside guy and my inside guy to read this, and I want my quarterback to read this, and this. And that's the foundation of my offense, and it goes like a Lego pieces where it connects. Next step. You can add a different play, like the motion, like you said. Nick Sirianni doesn't have motion into his offense. Well, maybe he doesn't add motion into his offense because it goes against the philosophy of his offense.
It does, and to be fair, not every quarterback loves motion. I liked it. I mean, that's, I kind of came into it. That's what we did when I was coming up. I prefer it, but I do know, like, there has been people made the point that Peyton Manning despised motion. He did not want motion. I get there being an argument for why Jalen Hurts wants to just line his guys up, be able to survey the field and find the matchup and abuse the matchup, and we don't need all these, shiny bells and whistles. I get that. But it's like, man, situationally, oh man, there's nothing there. Like, they just do not have it situationally. It's frustrating at times to watch that offense when they get some of these, it's like, come on, bro. Like, AJ Brown is absolutely just killing people. Design that man open. Get that man open on a free release in the red zone and let him do AJ Brown things. Like, they've done it before. Like, they faked in one of the games, they faked a tight end like bubble screen. And they bid on it, and then Devontae got vertical on them, and they hit Devontae in the end zone on that play. Like, I don't know why. It's like, come on, man. Like, I know they got it. I know they can do it. I know they can do it if they wanted to. It's like, it's one of those things, man, where I feel like there's something that can be done to help the red zone.
Right.
Now,
you put AJ Brown in motion, and he's on fire. He's red hot. If you put him on motion against a team that's playing you man to man in the red zone, and if he goes in motion, they're just going to bump down their responsibilities.
Yeah.
So that outside corner that happened to be their best outside corner, who was manning up on AJ Brown, you put him in motion. Now the responsibilities switch, and now their weakest cornerback is playing man to man on AJ Brown because you put him in motion on the other side of the field. Now you can run some isolation with him, and that sounds more like the West Coast offense, where the wide receiver has option routes. He can decide if he wants to run the fade.
You remember when Nick said that, though? Nick did say that he, like, the very first year Nick was here, mind you, we didn't have the personnel to do this yet. But Nick did talk about, like, oh, we're going to have he was talking about wide receivers running option routes and having that stuff. And, like, that's a big responsibility on the quarterback. Like, when wide receivers have freedom, it's a responsibility on the quarterback because you got to be on the same page. Like, you've got to both be reading the leverage of the corner correctly. You got to both be reading the coverage correctly. Like, it's a lot to that.
Absolutely.
But
that's
like
Brady refused to. That's why great quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, they hated playing with young wide receivers that weren't where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. Because those guys depended so much on timing. They weren't the greatest athletes. If the play broke down because the wide receiver wasn't where he was supposed to be, they probably wouldn't have to take a sack.
Yeah.
But you got a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, that if the play breaks down because the wide receiver isn't where he's supposed to be, then he can use his legs and improvise. Yeah. So I think maybe as a coach, you might get a little bit lazy and say, oh, well, Yeah, I mean, my wide receiver isn't where he's supposed to be because
Yeah.
there's a misunderstanding, and well, my uh, running quarterback bailed us out with his legs. So
That's the other thing. RPOs, man. The RPOs have been. I mean, look, we still run them. I see them on occasion out there, but they're definitely a little bit more heavier on play action this year than RPOs. And it's. I heard some people say that they felt like at the end of last year, they saw the defenses catching up to the RPOs. So the offenses have kind of naturally adjusted to that. To kind of start going in different directions. But man, we don't look the same in the red zone without the RPO. I'm not going to lie. And as you stated, the beauty of the RPOs is if you got a guy in the pistol or if you got him offset to your left and right, because you're doing an RPO, you can hold the defenders. You create the spacing so it allows your guy to get where he's going. But when you subtract that, now it is a little different because now you are playing with the distances, the spacing, the timing. I'm curious, man. I'm curious if they start going under center inside the red zone. We see it in the low red zone. They'll go under center in the low red zone, but especially inside the 5 in particular, we'll see them go under center. But even in the high red zone, it would be nice to kind of see them go under center a little bit there. I get why they don't want to do it between the 20s, and I agree with Nick generally about not doing that between the 20s. But man, they got to do something. They got to find a solution. They have got to find a solution in that red zone.
Yeah, and if you don't have a fullback and you want to have your quarterback play under center, the perfect running back for a quarterback that plays under center is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Aaron just said this. My guy Aaron coming in from Sydney, Australia. What's good, bro? He said, stuck with Hurts now, but needs to protect him. Would love Henry.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like he's that was the reason when people asked me at first if I wanted Derrick Henry. I was like, no, because we run our offense out of a shotgun. Derrick Henry's not a fit for that.
Right.
Derrick Henry is like Jordan Howard. You want him 6 to 8 yards deep in the backfield, and you want your quarterback under center. You want him with a full head of steam coming downhill at you.
I mean, if I'm in that gap and I see Derrick Henry rumbling down the hill at his top speed, 20 miles per hour, all 6'3", 240 pounds of him, I'm probably not going to make a business decision,
Yeah. Yeah, easy. That fair point, easy. That's a very fair point. He said, I think it's the officiating with the RPOs. We got burnt in 21 a few times with that. You're right. Where linemen were getting downfield. They do seem to be calling it really stringently recently. Like, I mean, before you were really only supposed to get I think they adapted the rules where it's only supposed to be 1.5 yards, but they were letting teams get away with 3 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you might be right that it's the timing of it easy and the way the officials are calling that timing, it's not really allowing the linemen to set up correctly. So they're trying to adapt to it now. Also, defensive linemen are smart. I'm pretty sure they're starting to return the favor when they feel it's an RPO and they're starting to tug and grab a little bit, hold that lineman up for just a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I could see that kind of, that. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming in and rocking with me, man. We did this for a little over an hour.
Yeah.
Hey, I love talking to people that have played a position I didn't play, can give perspective about playing that position, can talk about the trenches. It takes warriors, man. You got to be a warrior to play down in them trenches. Like, that ain't no joke, man. My whole existence was based upon reading leverage. it was so when I knew you gained leverage over my offensive lineman, I can get out of the pocket, get the ball out of my hands.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't want to get hit like that. I'm not going to lie. Courage is for the people that we celebrate and that are in graves. Forget that. I was trying to get out of the pocket when I saw that happen. And that's another thing. Like, to sign off, before we sign off, that's a point about Jalen Hurts I noticed this year. On one hand, he's sticking in the pocket. He's keeping his eyes downfield. He's trying to hit it. He's trying to hit the ball downfield. He's definitely sticking with it. Pause. I just realized how I said that that phrase. But he's trying to stick with it. But there are times where it's like, I don't know how you feel, but there's times I'm yelling at TV like, Jalen, you got to make a decision. Get the ball out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, like, it's been an up and down season, man. 6-1. I love being 6-1. I love the fact that we have not played our best ball yet. But I do get concerned a little bit. Like, come on, guys, come on. We need that game. Give us that game. Hopefully, we get that one coming to Dallas. That'd be the game I love to see it, where everything just comes together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes you need like a kind of a bad team to like really, you know, show your ass a little bit, pause, and then you get your rhythm. But it just seems like even though the Eagles have played like not so good teams, even the not so good teams seem to like want to really play that day that they face the Eagles, and all of the mistakes that they normally make against other competition, they just don't make it when it's time to face the reigning NFC champions, So yeah, it's hard to get that look.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we appreciate y'all so much, man. I'm going to sign off. We're trying to do this at least once a week, guys. Come on, we'll do a live stream. I mean, we're going to try to open up to the community, man. I would love to have you on to come talk with like my guy Jalen and, come in and be me, you. We can have Jalen come in. We'll have my guy Dubs come in. We can talk a little bit as the season goes on, man. But I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man. All right, y'all. Let's go Birds. 7-1, guys. 7-1. 7-1.
Go Birds.